I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, thank you to all for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone sends and shares with me. From the heart, thank you. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype to this video to help push the message out a little more. Thank you. Well, everyone, on this one, I want to take you back to 2019. Yeah, it was 2019, right before we would end up going or getting busted in Nayarit, right? And basically, in this place, I ran across two camaradas that they were with the business, right? On the inside, I knew them personally inside, right? I never thought I was going to run into them, though, in a small town called uh, Aticama, sorry, which is right there in San Blas, Nayarit, right? Because again, we were going in and out. You know, we would go in, stay for a little bit, calm down, boogie, and then pull out, right? Is what we were doing. So after being locked up over 23 years, you don't expect to come out here and run across vatos that you were busted with in the 90s, right? But anyways, I remember that day, where I was cruising on this motorcycle, just keeping point, right? Because again, we were gonna line some people up and boogie, right? And out of the camaradas there, I'm the one that knew how to ride a bike. So I would end up going, we didn't know exactly where the vato we were looking for was at, right? And in this place is right by the beach. So literally, we had homies in a certain place, waiting for news, for orders, whatever. And I would go into the little ranches, right, in the bike. And Aticama is weird because it's a small little town. Next to there is Los Cocos. Another side, you go into Las Palmas, Matanchen, then the Islitas, and then San Blas. We just knew he was in the municipio, right, or county of San Blas. We didn't know exactly where, but I remember I got off and I was buying a cocoa and buying a cocoa. Well, I had some issues, right, with norteños in Santa Cruz and Miramar, it was called. And it was basically because it was so hot. I was wearing a tank top, right? And basically, the norteños, they jammed me up. There's these little ramadas where people drink and stuff. They jammed me up, and it wasn't even because they were norteños, right? Me personally, since I was young, I hate whoever to jam me up. The way I looked at it is if you went that extra to jam me up, it's because you don't know me. We haven't met. we ain't from the same set. So all that is just woofing, right? To me, there's no point in that, you know. Anyways, in these ramadas, they would jam me up, and one of them had a tank top, and I seen the Welga bird he had on his chest, right? So I knew what they were, and at first it just, just shined it on because I was again assigned to something, right? That it was definitely more important than getting into a misunderstanding over stuff when we're in a whole different territory, right? And anyways, they would jam me up again, and I would get off the bike and just tell them like, look, you know, it's obvious you don't know me, Ese, and I don't know you, so there's no need for you to be jamming me up. We ain't from the same neighborhood, so you do what you're gonna do or get on, And the end of the day, there was patrullas, juras there, and I told him, I don't know where you've been to, Ese, but there's juras there, and you're right here starting pedos, you know. And anyways, long story short, Tabata just basically Trump went back to his chair and said we'll run across each other. And I told him, yeah, hopefully we will out in a platanera or somewhere, where there's not this much people. But as of right now, don't even trip, where I'm from. And anyways, I had that on my shoulders that had happened. And, I got my ear smacked back because of this. Of course, it's easy, right, for Phillies not to see the wiggles, how things unfold, but it's real easy for them to discipline and make it someone's pedal, right? And at the moment, Mono was there, and he's the one that told me, like, hey, Chino, and I told him I know what I have to do, and anyways, I had that on my back. I stopped for that coco, and I just heard Vatos calling out to me, like, hey, Chino, Chino. But, I think in my case, it's from the shoe, right? From the shoe, you learn how to pay attention to voices, to sounds. You could hear a toilet, the floor scratching, anything you can pinpoint being in a cell where it's coming from. You get in touch with that you could say instinct, but it's more like your surroundings kind of obligate you to trip on things like that. You got the time, and the voices that were getting at me, I knew it was nobody that was with us at the moment. And then I heard the camarada Dopey tell me like, "Hey, Gino, where's Jimmy at?" And Jimmy was a homie that was with us from Stockton, right? Dopey was from 19 in Mission, in Frisco. And the other homie was from Stockton, too. Uh, they used to call him Indio. No, not Indio, excuse me, Apache. Used to call him Apache. He was a big, stocky dude. And Again, we were busted 99, 2000 in Ironwood. And, in a sense, I was glad to see them, but just imagine, being in Mexico by the beach, me in a tank top, bald headed. Everybody could see my full sweater, you could say, on me. And homies were all blasted back too. And eh, you call attention, and that's what we need. Anyways, homie Apache, his family was from a little ranch nearby, and I told him I would visit, hey homie, it's a pleasure seeing you again. But again, I didn't want to call attention, right? So I told him, hey, I'll get at you though, right now ain't the time. And he said, all right, all right. He understood. Dopey did it, because Pachi knew that I was helping the señores, right? So he kind of put one and one together and left it alone. And Dopey right away said, like, hey, Chino, if you're out here doing something for the camaradas, let us know we're out here, right? And I told him, yeah, don't even trip. I'll get at you. And I knew the town that we're getting at, and I told him, I'll look for you. You know, it's only one main street on that town, anyways. So, anyways, not to make a long story short, I would end up telling Mono and the homies that were there with us, right? And I ran across two solid homies that I personally knew they were good gente, right? And they weren't dope fiends, nothing to that effect, right? And Mono sent me and a camarada to go out to that little town. It was like 20 minutes from where we were standing, and we went to look for them, and we found them. And basically getting there, we started talking, and I told him basically what we were doing there. And I told him don't get involved though, cause it has to do with avenues, prices, and being done directly for the señores. It's just best just enjoy your freedom, homie. I'm glad to see you guys, but they were tercos. They wanted to get involved, just because they were deported out to Mexico and they were out here. They didn't take the fact that they were homies, right? And they wanted to back us up. So, once introducing Mono to them, it's a wrap. You guys know Billy's, the Tecato mentality. They're going to use and abuse whichever camarada is willing to be put in that situation, right? And, but that way we expand and search. I could search towards San Blas and they can search towards Las Varas. And we left it at that. I didn't have no luck at finding. At the moment, we were looking for this fool named Chucky from Huntington Park, but there was nothing wrong with him, paperwork wise, right? In the States, what was wrong is Out here, he uh, he flipped and started pissing out the bucket, working with the Beltranes. And his mentality was different. He wanted feria. He wanted, he didn't want to be under the pilis no more, or under the rules and regulations that we had. He wanted to do his thing for the Beltranes and be able to get his thing without having nobody in his pocket. And these were his exact words. And since Mono was freshly made Billy out here, he thought he was speaking to myself and another camarada, you know. And long story short, it had happened out in Reese, this little town. He had a convoy of Beltranes hit a crew from Sinaloa and literally take them out. There was over 20 individuals from Sinaloa that he directed to be taken out. That's why we were looking for him. So we didn't have no luck. The homie though, Topi and Apache, they had luck, you know, over there by man, what's this town called? It's going towards Puerto Vallarta, right? It's this little town called oh, do excuse me, it'll come to me right now. Otates. This little town called Otates, right? And they found him over there, and basically them living so close, they said, hey, you can't just go in Otates and lift the dirt though, because everybody in there is mostly plugged up. They're gonna receive you in a negative way. Even when we have family, and they have never trusted us. It's part of what they think of us in Mexico, right? And I told them, nah, don't even trip. We'll figure it out. Now we know where to guide ourselves to, right? And they said, Simon, we gave him the gracias. Mono wasn't that much of a jerk, right? And he gave him not feria, but you know, gave him jale to make some feria for them. Because again, the vatos didn't use, but the feria Mono had was for what we needed, right? And he had dope that he was using, so he gave me a chunk of that and make some feria, homie. And it was left alone. I remember we were a whole week in this part of the is this place that it's called Manzanillo. It's right in between Los Cocos and El Llano, right? But literally, it's by the beach on one side. On the other side of the road, it's literally nothing but banana trees all the way towards up the mountain, yucca trees, right? So we went up there and we stood, in them fields up towards the mountain, just waiting. And we had problems finding them. We really did. It was, again, we were all wet behind the ears. I always was an individual that preguntando si llega a Roma type of thing, right? But this was different because that town was on the edge because of everything that was happening. So, we would end up asking the camaradas, Dopey and Apache, if they could do us a favor. And that's when I told the Billy Mono, hey, you have to address them with who you are, so that the homies feel more comfortable to really go out their way and help us, right? Because they live in this area. It ain't like they're gonna go back to Culiacan with us or anything. So that would happen. Mono disclosed who he was, and right away Apache says, Simon, mañana vamos. We'll go to Otates tomorrow. And I asked him how many times you go in there, and he says we at least go once, twice a week. My family sells cocos, aceite, or something like that. These little small ass cocos, and basically I told him, okay, me and Pinky will go with you and the homie, because if all 15 of us go, you know it's gonna get more crazy to get out of there. So the homies were down. They got themselves a pedazo, and we went up in there. We spotted the individual, and it was real easy. We couldn't find him, but we knew once we ran into him right away, we would know where he was at because he had his face blasted. So, anyways, we would end up fighting the individual. He was there working he was a comandante. He was a crooked comandante, working for the veteranes. And he was in that ranch supporting that comandante. And, we would end up doing some deliveries for the homies' families, like 4 deliveries, play the part. We would stop at a store to buy some water or whatever. And, things just happen. The store where we bought the things were in front of the plaza, right, of that place. And that individual happened to come up towards the plaza to watch a volleyball game they had, and he was by himself. So I seen that right away. It was boogie time. And not to glorify, but all 4 of us went, and we unloaded on him, right, at least as much possible for us to bounce. And it just wouldn't happen like that, because Otates, to get to where we're at, you literally have to go about 3-4 miles through a dirt road before getting into the ranch. And on our way coming out, you know, keep in mind we're in 2 little motorcycles, right? I have Pinky with me, and the homie has Dopey with him, right? And they ended up catching up to us, and let's just say were playing the part. They had better toys, you know, and they would end up shooting the bike of the homies, and the homies dropped. And when I tried to hit the brakes, Pinky right away told me like, nah, 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 dale, dale, dale. We talked with them about this. We can't, you know. And yeah, the homie Apache said, hey, dale, dale. We'll figure it out. We're gonna grab brecha up the mountain. So we left it at that. We split. We split. We got to where everybody else was at. It's the secure part, right? And we went uphill for 3 days to stay in the shadows. And so we heard of the news. In the little town these two camaradas lived with and their families. Like I said, it's small. It's literally coming down the main road. It cuts down towards the mountain, one main road, and it circles back around to the main street. And that's it. That's the whole town, right? So we were just letting things cool down so we could end up splitting back, right? And of course, we were, hopefully the homies made it. They know, they know the cerros out here. They go help their families pick up cocos or they just know, the territory better than us. And we would be there long enough though to see how they would take them in front of the preschool and they would end up hanging them literally butt naked, and they hanged the homies to make it a point, challenging not us, because again we were nothing, right? We were just pointers, but they were challenging. At this time, they were challenging Guzman, right? Because they just knew we came from Sinaloa, and it felt bad. It was one of the times I actually felt real bad. For one, I couldn't stop and try to hold the ground with the homies, which in reality it would have been impossible. We would have all gone, right, and gotten taken care of. We weren't going to hold them back with what we were carrying, but at least you fell in line with the camaradas. But it was just this dumb rule that we had out here is they catch one of us, one stays behind, whatever is you're on your own, you're by yourself. And of course, it wasn't a decision amongst camaradas, it was a decision amongst the pilis, right? So, us being campoleros, we follow what's there, right? We completed our mission and it cost two camaradas. And me personally, I wanted to get back at their family, one way or another, at least circling back around and leaving some feria because the homie Apache had a couple kids already. A girl, Dopey didn't have kids, but he did have a wife already. And they went out their way to do what we're supposed to do. I'm not gonna say I feel bad about that because I would have probably done the same thing, right? And write it out with camaradas. It's just, it is what it is. But, you know, It's messed up when it's just split, and on the way there, more we heard from Mono was, "Hey, don't tell the old man Darrell about this. We don't know them too bad till we came out. We completed the mission on our own, and all this BS that we couldn't even honor them right with. They helped us and they fell in line of taking care of this individual, because you're not gonna go against Mono and start telling Darrell something he's telling you directly not to speak on, right? It's like going against the green, and eventually, even if he don't do it on the spot, he would eventually gonna wash you up. That's facts. But anyways, I hope I made sense for those that have been asking me to actually speak about Mexico, right? The Wiggles in Mexico, it's exactly what it is. And again, when we were doing things, we were just pointers. We'd go out, and if we could get it done by ourselves, we would. We would always hit Cerro mountains, stay up in the mountain. We always had somebody in town and guiding us, and we just came down, hit, and punched. But I wanted to touch on this because these two camaradas that, again, fell in line in the wiggles of taking care of business in Mexico. And I think it's just right for them to come out. They ain't with us no more. But to minimize what they did by not even giving them credit, that's some shady spot. And I also want to touch on this because I'm gonna do a reaction. Someone asked me about an individual, Mono, that was claiming to be a Billy out here. And I know everything that happened, from the start. He has set up, he was set up a Billy that I will get into it over there in the States. He was real good at BSing in Mexico. There is a Billy right now that's part of the Mexican faction, Mono or Chango, right, from Ontario. And when Darrell was alive, his radio's name was also Mono, or M1, for those that, when he lost his life, talk about the name didn't match and that. I mean, come on. For one, when they hanged him up, they saying they didn't match up. Damn, I wonder how you found that out. Cause when they hanged him up, the popo that took him was part of Daryl's workers, you could say, and his body never got discovered or came out. They turned him in somewhere, and they turned him into some proper people, him and his nephew, because they hanged him and his nephew. Those that know who I'm talking about, the one in that blue truck. But I'll leave that there. Anyways, this was just me sharing an experience, and that ain't luck. it's probably that, you know. I know everything we don't do to get a pat in the back. Like when Kale, nah, we're never gonna hear that, right? And that's understandable. But I think that again, it's too much, you know, where their pedestal is now, where Camarada gives his life and falls in line to do what he's supposed to, and you can't even give him his proper respects. You know, Mexico, federal prison, state prison, at the end of the day, it's the same thing, right? We're pawns, we're disposable. Please stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones. Hope I made sense, everyone.